Hey, welcome to Janktown. Will here, and today we will be doing a budget upgrade on one of the precons from Lost Caverns of Ixalan, Velociramptor. But before that, I want to thank everybody who voted. As you can see here, it was actually super close. I might actually do a video on the Blood Rights Precon just because the results were just that close. But hey, if you were a part of this, thank you so much for supporting the channel. And if you haven't yet, I hope you can leave a like and subscribe. It's a small thing, but it really goes a long way in helping the channel out. With all that out of the way, let's get into our upgrades. And as usual, we'll kick things off with our commander analysis. So the Precon gives us a couple of new legendary creatures to play with, and for our commander, we will be using the face commander Pantlaza, Sun Favored. He's a build-around commander, and we will be relying on his ability to discover whenever a dinosaur enters the battlefield. Now, the deck already naturally comes with a lot of dinos, so the hope is that we will be able to chain them into each other. The deck strategy is pretty simple. Flood the board with dinos. Now, I want to emphasize the word flood here, not in the sense of like getting flooded with mana or flooded with lands. And the reason I bring this up is because there are going to be some nuances to this. The other commander, Wayta, she's obviously an enraged commander, which is, I know, dino-centric, but there's a big difference in her playstyle. She doesn't need a lot of dinos to get her game plan in motion. If anything, she only needs like a few key pieces on the board, abuse the whole enrage mechanic, and ride that to victory. Compare that though with Pantlaza, who brings a more explosive playstyle to the table, in that he can snowball into more and more dinos to then pile on a game-winning advantage. Now in early turns, nothing's gonna be more important to us than ramp. Sure, it's tempting to play like a card value or card draw engine early, start drawing cards. Yeah, it's always fun, I get it. But we want to get our commander out as quickly as we can so we can get the ball rolling. With Pantlaza out, we can start discovering. Now, that sounds really fun. However, a downside or something we gotta watch out for is we can realistically run out of cards. I mean, between playing lands, ramping, playing a creature, getting something off the top, maybe we draw another land, we can stall. And honestly, that's gonna be one of the worst things that can happen to us, running out of gas. We need to overwhelm the board to win, and if we stall, we'll fall behind pretty quickly. Something also to consider is that Pantlaza's Discover ability is attached to the toughness of the dinosaur coming in. So in his case, it's 4. The reason I point this out is because while the dream is to be able to just start peeling haymakers off the top, realistically, what are we gonna get at 4 mana value or less? Maybe a 4 mana value dino? Those aren't usually that threatening. So actually, the best hits we can hope to get out of our commander is probably gonna be something like a card value or card draw engine. At worst, maybe some ramp to set us up for a big future turn. Now, I want to talk about Discover a bit more because it's a pretty amazing mechanic. I mean, Cascade was already really good, and somebody in Wizard said, you know what? We gotta make it better. And the two ways it's usually better is that one, it gives you the flexibility for card draw. That's great. But what's really crazy is that it triggers as an ETB. Not as a cast, but as an enters the battlefield trigger. Now, Wizards did try to put a safety valve on Pantlaza by putting a do this only once each turn clause, but we can get around this through blink effects. How this works is, since Pantlaza is gonna be coming in as a new object, it sort of wipes the memory of the previously existing Pantlaza, and so it'll reset our count. Now, I know we aren't in the colors known for blinking, but there are ways, you know, just gotta get a little creative. One last thing to note though is that Pantlaza's Discover ability is a May ability. It's rare, but there will be times where we wanna sequence things properly. Like for example, if you play a Marauding Raptor first, small creature, we might not want to discover off that, but we can use the discount it brings to play a bigger creature and then use that bigger dinosaur's toughness to then start discovering into something hopefully really, really threatening. Let's get into the cards we're going to be adding to the deck. So I talked about the importance of card draw, and Colossal Majesty, Garruk Surprising, and Elemental Bond are just good value engines that'll get us cards over the course of a game. The 4 power or 3 power I'm not too worried about because I mean, we are playing dinos and they're generally big creatures. However, a card I really like is Lurking Predators. This allows us to play dinos off of someone else's turn because whenever they play a spell, if there is a creature on top of it, and it's usually going to be a dinosaur, we get to put it into play, and this will trigger Pantlaza's ability. ability. Next though is we want to be able to find ways to abuse how Discover interacts with blink effects. And Eldrazi Displacer and Emiel the Blessed are just ways to be able to repeatedly blink something over multiple turns. This gets us a lot of value off of Pantlaza because then we can potentially discover 4 times in one turn cycle. Teleportation Circle only triggers once on our end step, but that's fine, just some good additional value. And something to note is that it's only 4 mana value, meaning Pantlaza can be the one to find this when he comes into play. Strionic Resonator, one of my favorite cards. While it doesn't let us blink, it does let us essentially trigger Pantlaza twice by copying the ability. Jax is the Troublemaker, also 4 mana value, meaning he's also discoverable by Pantlaza. And while it isn't a blink effect, the token coming in is essentially kinda like that. Even if you create a copy of Pantlaza, he'll just Legend Rule himself, meaning we'll still get that Discover X ability to get additional value. Now, chaining dinos is fun, but it gets really fun when the big dogs come out to play. And nothing is bigger than Galta Primal Hunger. Potentially just a 2 mana value 12/12, this can allow us to discover 12. Keeping in theme with the big boys is Annoyed Altasaur, a 7 mana value 6/5 with Cascade, meaning we get to discover 5, but we also get to Cascade 7. Galta and Mavrin is a 7 mana value 12/12 that reads whenever we attack, we can then create a tapped and attacking XX green dino. Being able to create that body is good for pressure, but it also means that if we had no dinos in hand, at least this gives us a mean to be able to trigger Pantlaza. And then we have Gishath, Sun's Avatar. Now this card is crazy. It is pretty expensive, but the price recently went down thanks to the reprint in Lost Caverns of Ixalan. 8 mana value 7/6 with Vigilance, Trample, Haste, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we can reveal that many cards off the top of our library. Then we put any number of dinosaur creatures from among them and put them onto the battlefield. Yes, being able to discover 6 is probably decent, but the sheer amount of power this can suddenly put onto the battlefield is just insane. Unfortunately though, Pantlaza only has 4 toughness, so it's gonna be pretty hard to discover all those big boys on their own. It's not gonna be impossible to cast them though. And while the built-in ramp package is good, I wanted to enhance it further with Monster Manual, a 4 mana value artifact, again, discoverable by Pantlaza, and we can pay 2 and tap it to then put a creature card from our hand onto the battlefield. So to note, we can activate this on our opponent's turns, meaning we can play a dino on our turn, discover that way, and then put something for free into play on someone else's turn, also get to discover that way. Hulking Raptor is a 4 mana value 5/3 that adds 2 green mana during our pre-combat main phase. I like this because again, it's discoverable by Pantlaza, and having the extra 2 green is just good to be able to ramp us in future turns. Now the downside of a creature strategy is that we need to wait a turn before we can actually get some damage in. And while the deck comes with Xenagos, Rhythm of the Wild, Regisaur Alpha as like haste enablers, I included Rising of the Day just as another solid haste enabler. I also like that, again, discoverable by Pantlaza. The removal package of the deck is actually also pretty decent with Generous Gift, Path, Chandler's Ignition, things like this, but I added a couple more dinos in Territorial Allosaurus and Kogla and Yadaro. The Allosaurus can be kicked even if we're playing it off of Discover, again, discoverable by Pantlaza, while Kogla and Yadaro can either fight a creature down or we can discard it and then destroy an artifact or enchantment. Pretty versatile. Last few cards now. I've complained about Pantlaza having only 4 toughness, but Castle and Builder's Blessing allows us to create a static effect that can bring his toughness up to 6. What this does is if we play these enchantments on turn 4 and then Pantlaza on turn 5, we can then discover 6, allowing us to play into bigger dinos or bigger threats. Now sometimes combat's unpredictable and there might be bigger creatures than the dinosaurs that we have out there. Warstorm Surge is a good backup that can help us close out games, and it takes advantage of discovering creatures and our extra blink effects. All in all, getting prices from MTG Goldfish, as of the recording of this video, these additions will ring us up at about $50, or more precisely, $50.69. Now arguably, the harder part of deck building is choosing what cards to cut. Now, I've talked about how Wayta just invites a different playstyle, and so we're actually gonna cut her as well as all of her enraged dinosaurs. We're also going to be cutting a lot of the enrage enablers such as Itzquint, Raging Regisaur, Raging Swordtooth, Temple Altasaur, and also some spells like Fiery Confluence and Savage Stomp. Savage Stomp sounds like a fun card, but I mean, we're already running Path, Generous Gift. These are just much better. Drover of the Mighty and Ixalan's Lorekeeper scare me because Manadorks are just so fragile. Regal Behemoth, Verdant Avatar, and Zatalpa all have fun effects stacked onto them, but they're just so expensive for what you're getting, and so I'd much rather have the big boys that we added. Majestic Kill Yup Thunderous and Thundering Spineback give us some combat advantages, sure, but ultimately I felt like they didn't bring enough to the table to justify their spot on the curve. The next cuts I'm gonna make are what I think are trap cards. And Descendant's Path looks really cool, but it actually plays a lot clunkier than it reads. So easy cut for me. Dinosaur Egg is also one of those. It kind of plays out really slow. Sure, we get to discover 3, but I mean, what are you now getting at 3 mana value or less? Really hard to also trigger his Dice ability because we don't really have sack outlets. Then there's Shifting Ceratops. I know it's discoverable by Pantlaza, a phrase I feel like I've been saying so many times, but a 5/4 pro blue that just has some abilities, it's okay. I think the cards we added just have more impact. Last card to get cut is a Mountain. Now the Precon already gives us 39 lands, but with the ramp package and the greater focus on Discover, I think going down to 38 is gonna be just fine. And that's it for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed that budget Precon upgrade, and thank you again for those who voted. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to check out our other deck techs here on the channel. They should be showing up like right beside me. And if you want to support the channel, be sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe. Really helps the channel out. Stay inspired, friends, and I'll see you next time.